Zena. Thank you. So my topic today is going to be different to what I normally speak on. I run I work with a lot of executive teams, leadership teams, and there's very much a focus on goals. What are we going to achieve this year? What do we want to achieve next year? Reviewing last year, setting new goals, and so on. And that all makes sense. We all want to be successful. I guess that's why we're all in the room. We're here to learn, we're here to grow, because we want to be more successful. We want to achieve more. And so it makes me think about the whole idea about life and success and business. And if we think about it from a goal setting point of view, only 7% of goals are achieved successfully. And when we think about the amount of time we spend on defining goals and creating smart goals and working towards them, for a 7% success rate, we're obviously doing something wrong. And so it makes me think about, is it the process or is it what we focus on? And that's really what we're going to go through today. A few rules of engagement, and I always like to start with rules of engagement. The first thing is, this is normally a 3-hour workshop, okay? So we're going to go hard and fast for the next 60 minutes to cover the important bits. Now I have a destination in mind. I've got checkpoints that I want to tick off as we go through. But if you've heard me speak before, I love a good rabbit hole, because often at those rabbit holes, those distractions are where like some of the juicy bits are. So I'm always open to a good distraction. And the other thing is, we may touch on topics that I've thought about and learned about because of really hard times in my life. And sometimes when I talk about these things, and I don't know whether it's going to happen today or not, but sometimes when I talk about these things, I get emotional. And you'll see that. Now, I'm pretty comfortable with that. I've done a lot of work, but I don't want you to get distracted about it. It's just something, I've got this old trigger that comes up in me every now and then. I'm cool with it, I hope you are too. Okay? So let's get into it. I'm hoping it's all set up for me here. Yeah, setting goals for life. Here's a really good rule for life. Growth and comfort do not coexist. I start most of my presentations talking about how we learn. And we've all been to seminars and conferences where the speaker is just amazing. They're exciting and they're inspirational and they uplift us. And you walk out of there thinking, I'm going to change the world. But then 2 days later, we're just back to normal. Yeah? Who's had that happen? Yeah, all of us, hey. And when I think back, the only times I have heard a speaker that really motivated me to change was not when they made me feel great and excited and powerful. It was when they sometimes made me feel like shit, And so unsatisfied or dissatisfied with where I am now, I thought, that's such a powerful thought. I've just got to explore that and commit to something different. They're the only times a speaker has actually ever changed me. So that's my goal. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to make you feel uncomfortable, and hopefully that'll motivate you to have a proper takeaway, not just a distracting 55 minutes of what we have left. So they're my objectives for today. So, how do we set goals? Everyone in this room, I'm sure, has set a goal at some stage. What's the process? What do we do?
Think about the end game, I suppose.
Yeah. Begin with the end in mind, absolutely. And then what's the process we go through?
Break it down into the steps you've got to, or the individual tasks, behaviours you've got to change, the steps to take to get there.
Yeah. Begin with the end in mind, develop an action plan, think about the risks and all the reasons why it might not work, try to mitigate that, think about our stakeholders, who could influence the outcome that is going to take me off track. So why do we set goals? I've got an exercise for you on the papers I've handed out. Think about a goal that you've set. And I want you to do an exercise called 5 Whys about that goal. Now, 5 Whys is a problem-solving technique. We use it in business to understand the root cause of whatever problem that we're dealing with. So, we have a problem in business. Well, why did this happen? And then you write down an answer, and then you think, well, but why did that happen? And then you come up with another answer. Yeah, we're going a bit deeper. And you ask yourself again, well, why did that happen? So I want you to do the same thing with the goal. Why did you set that goal? And then come up with an answer. Well, why was that important to you? Why was that important to you? Why was that important to you? Until we come to the root cause, the root motivation behind that goal that you've set for yourself. Okay, so I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. And the important thing with using 5 whys as a tool, it does require a bit of discipline. Each time you answer the why question, you have to be going deeper. You have to be looking at the underlying driver or motivation behind your last answer. We're not coming up with 5 different reasons as to why you chose that goal. We're picking one and we just keep going deeper until we can't go any further. Let's see how you go. I've done this hundreds of times, and every time we get pretty much, except for Nick messed me up a little bit today, pretty much the reason why we set a goal is that we want a better life and we want to be happy. Is that a valid reason for a goal? Yeah. Fuck yeah. Well, like, what else is there? What are we living for? You know, is it for the trappings of success and to have a nice business and a good relationship? Like, some of those things can contribute to that, but we just want to be happy, don't we? And yet we don't really think about that so much when we're choosing these goals. We know we want something better, but it's really important to break it down and think about what that core driver is. And if it's to be happy, I think that's a more than valid goal. So let's understand happiness a little bit. The next step is we're going to go through and we're going to measure how happy you are. This is a test for enduring happiness we're going to go through, and that's the next thing on your form. And we'll go through the questions in a minute, but this comes from the School of Positive Psychology at Penn State University. If you've heard about Martin Seligman, like, he was the founder of the whole positive psychology movement. So this is where I've got this questionnaire. So it's solid, okay? It's not something Popey's made up, all right? So there's 4 questions. Here's the first one, and it's on your form. So you look at the question and you give yourself a score between 1 and 7. There's no half scores. You can't be a 3.5 or a 5.5. You've just got to pick a number and circle it. And when we answer the 4 questions, you add up your score, and what we're going to get is your average score. And that's going to tell us a bit about what your level of enduring happiness is. Because this is the game of life, isn't it? Yeah? Okay. So what's the first one? In general, you consider yourself not a very happy person through to a very happy person. Pick a number. I'm going to keep this moving. Question 2. Compared to most of my peers, I consider myself less happy as a 1 or more happy as a 7. Question 3. Some people are generally very happy. They enjoy life regardless of what's going on, getting the most out of everything. To what extent does this characterisation describe you? And last one. Some people are generally not very happy. Although they're not depressed, they never seem as happy as they might be. To what extent does this characterisation describe you? It's a little bit flipped. 1 is a great deal and 7 is not at all. So add up your scores, divide by 4 to get the average. Grab your phone if you need it. And hands up when you've got your number. And then I'll tell you what your number means. Yeah? Anyone still going?
Yes. I'm not very good at maths.
You're the creative man.
I've got it now.
You got it, okay. So, if you've got a score of 5.5 or more, you're in the top quartile, you're in the top 25% of levels of enduring happiness worldwide. If your score is 3.5 or less, you're in the bottom 25%. So what does that mean? So it actually means a lot more than just the level of happiness, you know, the quality of life that you feel like you're experiencing. Because studies show the difference in life expectancy between the top 25% and the bottom 25% is about 10 years. So that's like a pack-a-day smoker or someone that never exercises. So the impact on your quality of life and length of life is massive. So this happiness question is pretty significant, I would say. All right, that's why if I think about my life purpose, even before I did this stuff, the first line in my life purpose is to be happy. Okay, so it drives a lot of what I do. Haven't always been successful with it, but that's been the key driver. So let's look at what really makes us happy. Okay, he makes me happy. That's my grandson. Okay, I just love that shot. It's just so cool. Okay, so I'm going to share with you. This is all out of positive psychology and the Martin Seligman stuff. There are three main sources of happiness. Because the more we can understand this, then we can start to put some more leverage into our lives about what are the drivers that are going to really change things in terms of the sorts of goals that we set. Okay? So number one, first source of happiness is pleasure. Okay, what does it say? A feeling of happy satisfaction and enjoyment. Okay, like we all like to have fun. That's a valid source of feeling good and enjoying happiness. So let's think about pleasures, they're sensual. Okay, it might be a massage, a glass of champagne or a really nice red wine, chocolate, watching a sunset. For me, it's vanilla ice cream. I just love a good vanilla ice cream. But what happens when we seek pleasures? You know, I can get a tub of ice cream and sit at home and relax, sit out on my deck, and I can have that first spoonful and I think, oh, this is so good. Okay. And then I have another one. And then I have another one. And I have been known, I'm almost ashamed to admit, that I finished the whole lot. So how much do I enjoy that last spoonful compared to the first one? Nowhere near as much, hey? So the law of diminishing returns. The more we seek pleasure, the more we think we need to find something else to give us that same buzz, don't we? We've all had that, and we've chased it down to the end of the bucket of ice cream, the end of that bottle of wine. Like I love a 1 hour massage. A 3 hour massage would just drive me mental, okay? It's different. So there's diminishing returns. You think the more we chase it, the more we get out of it. Pleasure doesn't work that way.
There's a few exceptions.
Yeah,
For me,
okay.
Sunrise and sunsets.
Yeah.
Never get together.
Yeah. But I guess we never get to enjoy it for like 3 hours.
Continuous.
Yeah, we've got to wait till tomorrow, and that's a nice part of it too, hey? Yeah, cheers, that was good. All right, number two, excitement. What's that defined as? A feeling of enthusiasm, eagerness or exhilaration. Okay, get the adrenaline going. What excites you? It might be watching a game of football or sport, might be being involved in sport. Like I love a bit the adrenaline surge as much as anyone. It just gets us pumped up, and we're going to punch the world, and everything feels great. But again, we've all heard about adrenaline junkies who sometimes just get lost in the moment and go too far. Okay, and so what excites us today, if we do it tomorrow and the next day and the next day, again, it's not going to have the same impact. We want more, and there's going to be a limit somewhere, isn't it? So again, we've got this idea of law of diminishing returns. Both of these are good in part, but they're not really going to continue to drive and inspire us and give us the sort of life that we really want. But they're great in small doses. I'm not talking against them. I'm just saying it's really important to understand how they contribute to our level of satisfaction in life and the happiness that we're all seeking. Okay, let's go one more. Fulfillment. The achievement of something desired. So where do we find fulfillment? Okay, so unlike pleasure and excitement, that sense of fulfillment needs a bit of work up front, doesn't it? It's not necessarily easy for us to achieve or to walk into. Okay, so when we achieve something where there's been a challenge and it's been difficult, we get that level of satisfaction. Oh, I got through, And how good, how fulfilling does that feel when we achieve something that we've worked really hard for? Okay. I also find fulfillment through connection. Okay, and part of that is getting a better understanding of myself. And sharing those deeper parts of myself, I find fulfillment out of that, because it leads to true connection. And I think that's an important part of how we find fulfillment, getting in touch with a deeper aspect of ourselves, and sometimes of getting in touch with something bigger than us as well. having a strong sense of purpose or a connection with whatever that bigger thing is for us. Now, the difference between fulfillment and the other two is the other two are extrinsic. You know, we're looking for something outside us to fuel us, to give us that sense of satisfaction, to give us that sense of happiness. And while it's pleasant and it's interesting, it's not sustainable. Fulfillment's different. It's something inside us. It's the work that we have to put in, that sense of achievement or that sense of connection with ourselves or with somebody else or with something greater, that is actually what creates that sense of fulfillment and that deep, long-lasting sense of happiness, of contentment, of satisfaction. So I think this is a really important question for us to explore. And it's pretty hard to have a conversation about fulfillment without thinking about Maslow. So I'm going to assume that everyone's seen one of these before, okay? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I'm going to challenge a couple of the ideas around this. Like, first one's pretty straightforward. Physiological needs, we all need food and water, warmth, maybe a Gold Coast we need some cooling every now and then as well, as our physiological needs. And then in the Maslow model, the next one is safety needs. We want to feel secure and safe. And a lot of the thoughts about this and the conversations about this relate to shelter. We want a nice sturdy home to feel safe and protected. But I also want to put forward the idea that I know that there's a number of people in this room today who don't feel safe. Not because they don't have a nice home, but because of a level of insecurity that pretty much all of us carry to some extent. You know, there are situations that we're not comfortable in, where we're nervous or hesitant about exposing our true selves. You know, this is about vulnerability and being open and being connected. And let's face it, we all hold back in some way, okay? So I just want to put that out there about thinking about what it means to be safe, okay? It's more than just having a solid roof over our heads, okay? It's just that emotional safety or psychological safety that we all feel to different extents. Okay, above that, Maslow put belongingness and love needs. You know, we all need that sense of connection. It helps us feel recognised, it helps us feel loved, it helps us feel connection with other people. And look, loneliness is a big issue. You know, we talk about happiness having an impact on our life expectancy. People that are lonely also have a reduced life expectancy, by about 10 years or so. You know, we need social connection. And I think there's a relationship between that need for social connection and that lack of safety we sometimes feel. If we go back, I thought about this a couple of months ago when I'm sitting watching TV one night and the dog comes in, and instead of just lying down on the carpet, she did a couple of loops. So Polly turned around a couple of circles and then sat down. And I thought, why is she doing that? There's no grass, wild grasses that she needs to flatten, but it's instinctive for dogs. You know, they've been doing it for hundreds of thousands of years, so it's in her DNA. She doesn't know why she's doing it. That's how she sits down. And I think, well, what's in our DNA? Like 100,000 years ago, if we were isolated, if we were lonely, if we were rejected by our tribe or community, we were going to die. And when you think about, we've only perhaps moved past that idea of that sense of safety for the last, 5,000 years, maybe? So that fear of being rejected, of being open, of being true to ourselves, and that risk of being rejected, I think triggers something deep in our DNA. And I think that's why we struggle with it so much. And so that belongingness, I think, relates to that sense of safety. And I think about my own development over the years. The more safe I've felt within myself, I've had better relationships because I connect better. I connect better with myself, and so I connect better with the people that I have relationships with. And from belongingness comes esteem needs. So we're feeling safe. This is the Mark Pope version of the Maslow model. I feel safe in myself, so I have better relationships. And now I've got this really solid foundation for my life. So then I can move and think about, well, who can Mark Pope be? What can I achieve in the future and down the track? Because I've just got this solid foundation, okay? And some days I feel rock solid with that. Some days I feel a bit iffy. You know, that's just part of life as well. And so you continue to do the work and you think about this stuff, and I like to talk about it too, because it helps make me solid and be really clear on the things that I'm talking about and how they affect my life and my brain and how I process things. And above that, we've got self-actualization. So let's think about how we're going in those areas. And that's the next little assessment we're going to do today. If you look on your forms, so let's think about our sense of self, and you can actually translate to that safety need that I was talking about. And we're going to talk about our relationships. And we're going to do this little assessment that I made up years ago now that starts to examine those two aspects of our life, our sense of self and our relationships. So the exercise is, we've got key results areas. Under self, our key results areas are sense of purpose, vulnerability, personal growth, self-love, and strength of spirit. So the first part of the exercise is to look at each of those and think to yourself, how important is that? How much do I value that idea about myself and my life? And give yourself a number out of 10 for how important you think that is. So the first one, sense of purpose. You know, I've got a very clear sense of purpose. It serves me really well, and I can see how important that is. I'm going to rate my sense of purpose as a 9 or a 10. And then, so you might think that, but then some days you wake up or you go through a tough period and you think, oh God, I'm feeling a bit lost right now. I know it's really important for me to have a clear sense of purpose, but I just feel like I'm sitting at about a 5 or a 6. Okay? So that tells me, that's telling us your result. But the exercise is I want you to rate the important scores first and then come back and do the result score for each of those. Before you get started, I'm going to give you definitions for that. The next step is to do the same thing with your key relationships. Think about the 5 most important people in your life. Life partner, might be a parent, might be a child, a sibling, a really close friend. Think about that relationship, and I want you to give a number for how important that is. So let's think about your life partner. Maybe they're a 9 out of 10, okay, for importance. And your relationship might be great right now. So you give it a 9. But you know, we have relationships. We're different people. We're different beasts coming together. It's not always smooth and happy, is it? We have some rocky times. So maybe you're having a rocky time in your relationship right now. Maybe it's just sitting at a 5 or a 6. Or maybe you've got 2 kids and your relationship with one of them is just so solid and the other one you're struggling with. And I see this happen. I get clients who do this stuff. I see this happening all the time. Okay? So maybe you've got a better relationship. Both relationships are important, and one's really, you've got a high number and the other one you're struggling with and it's going to be a bit lower. Like, there's no judgment about this. This is just your life. Okay? So think about it. Give yourself a number and work through those 10 questions. Here are my definitions for the self, because we all have a different idea what one of these things mean. So I want to have some consistency and some repeatability around this. So sense of purpose, you know, what drives you? What makes you want to get up in the morning? And pushes you towards a satisfying life, like values and behaviours. Vulnerability, the ability to face uncertainty, risk and emotional exposure. I used to think vulnerability and intimacy were pretty much the same thing. They're not. Intimacy is just feeling comfortable at sharing about something personal. Vulnerability is being prepared to share something about yourself and knowing there's a risk. And having that uncertainty and fear about what that outcome might be. Personal growth, you know, are you comfortable with where you are? Are you curious about learning more? Do you have the humility to accept that there's things I could be better with? Self-love, high regard for your own well-being and happiness. Taking care of your own needs and not sacrificing your well-being to please others. We're all guilty of that. Strength of spirit. Do you have the courage of your convictions? Do you have the energy to face both the exciting and the mundane aspects of your day, and you have the discipline to maintain that focus on the important things in your life? They're the definitions. So go through, define your 5 important people, put the important score for yourself and the important people, and then go through and write the result scores. So I'm just keeping on. We're doing okay for time. So take your time, just put some thought into this, because this is nothing more important in your life than the exercise you're doing right now. I'm always fascinated that some people go bang, 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 bang. And some people just really take their time and consider it. And I don't know what the right way to do it is. Okay. Do you go on gut and instinct and just go bang? Or do you put some thought into it? There's probably an argument for doing it both ways, you know?
But it doesn't mean that the person that writes it down has already thought about it.
Maybe, yeah. I'm again, that's why I'm not judging it. I'm just observing. It's curious. Yeah. So, what's the difference between your importance score and your results score? What does that mean? Did everyone get the same numbers for both? No. Okay. So what does the difference mean?
Sure, all the gap for the area for improvement.
Yeah. So how big should the gap be? Should they be perfectly the same? Is a 1 point acceptable? What if you go to 3? What does that mean? What do you think?
The bigger the gap, the more you need to work on.
What is work to do?
But
Yeah.
focus on those items.
Yeah.
Incongruent.
Yeah.
And it might be just a sign of how hard you judge yourself too.
So true. Yeah. Who struggles with being self-critical? Yeah. Like that's the self-love piece as well. You know, lack of acceptance of ourselves. Is that what you were saying about like the gap?
Yeah, so I mean, and you might go through different stages in your life, mightn't you, where
Totally.
you're up and down,
Yep.
and down, and it could be different today to what it was 6 months ago,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I think as long as you're maybe perhaps aware of the number that you're targeting, that's probably a good thing, mate.
Yeah. So this is all about awareness, isn't it? Okay. And so there might be a gap and you might think, well, maybe there's nothing I can do about that, but I accept it for what it is. I also think we make things hard for ourselves. For your 5 relationships, hands up if you scored everyone as a 9 or a 10 for importance. A few people? For importance, yeah. Yeah, you had a lot of important people in your life. Okay. So hands up those people again, just keep them up. And keep your hands up if your self-love score was higher than, for importance, was higher than their importance score.
It was the same.
Yeah. So what I find a lot of people do is their family and their kids and whatever, 9 out of 10 for importance. Self-love, 7, 8. And I say, well, what's that about? And they say, well, I love my family. I want to provide for my family. I want to protect my partner and my kids. Is that a good argument? Absolutely. But what does that actually mean? You know? Do we want our kids to have self-love and respect? Yeah. What do you bring to a relationship if your love and regard for your partner is less than the love and regard for yourself? Do you think that's the basis for a healthy relationship? It's not, is it? Okay, does that mean you love your partner less? Absolutely not. But it has to start here. You know, of all of these, I think self-love is the most important because that leads us to all the other good stuff in our lives. If I don't love myself, my relationships aren't going to be as good because I'm not prepared to step in and be there and be fully present in that relationship. And we want our kids to have healthy self-love and high self-regard, don't we? So that they make good choices. And we tell them that all the time. Are they going to listen to what we say, or are they going to look at what we do? Like, what's the example that we set? And I see people do this all the time. And not only in their numbering, but also some of the decisions that they make in their relationships. And I've been there, you know, and it just doesn't work out. Neither relationship is going to be as good as it could be if we're always either on paper or in our hearts and minds playing second fiddle to that person that we love so much. What are the other things I see in this? That's probably the biggest challenge. And just people that rate their self-love at a low score anyway. So what do we think, you know? So we want to have a fair importance score, and we want our result score to align with our importance score. Yeah? So I've got 3 brothers. I love them all dearly. In terms of importance score, they're about a 7, okay? Does that mean I don't love them? Not at all. But I don't have time for them in my life with my own family, with my immediate but extended family, with the work that I do. So we talk regularly, but it's not like we're in each other's pockets all the time. And that's okay, you know? It's about having that balance that I'm fulfilling, I'm meeting my own requirements in terms of those relationships. But the balance thing is important, because when we're out of balance, it creates a dissonance in us. It creates stress in our lives. So we're not as centred, we're not as calm, because we're just not aligned as we should be. But the problem is that when we rate everything at a 9 or a 10, we're setting ourselves up for failure. It's just not realistic. Like, we can't have it, as much as we'd like the idea of having a bunch of 9s and 10s for sense of purpose and strength of spirit and your partner and your kids and your parents and whatever, we just can't do that. So it's also about being realistic. You know, a 9 for a sibling as an importance score and a 6 as a result score, the problem is not the result score, the problem is the importance score, okay? Because that's actually being more realistic and kinder to yourselves. So I want you to start to think about your scoring in that way, and that's why when I give this feedback to clients, they start to get it and they start to adjust what those numbers mean. There's another important aspect to this conversation. Like, a measure of the balance in your life is adding up all the gaps and getting a total gap score for self and a total gap score for relationships. And maybe a healthy result there is maybe if it's less than a 3 or a 4, you're going pretty well. You've got good alignment between what you think is important and how things are tracking right now. And so for your sense of self, but also your relationships. So the first step is often to reduce the importance score and get that back and be realistic about where that should be. There's a whole interesting piece for me around what we think these are. So why did you pick the importance score? Where did that number come from? Is that what you truly believe, or is that what you think you should have? My importance score for my wife or my husband should be a 10, okay? Because that's because we're committed to each other and that's what it should be. Maybe, okay? Maybe if you're 10 for self-love, and if you're not a 10 for self-love for importance, regardless of where you're sitting right now, I think that's your first mistake. There's no one more important in your life than you. And we need to start treating ourselves that way. And it doesn't mean we value other people less, and if you want to put your partner as a 10 too, that's fine. But there's no way they should be a 10 and you should be an 8 for importance. Yeah? Does that land? Yeah. Okay. So let's think about importance scores. Because I think there's a lot of the times we put that down, it's an expectation. It's about what we think that should be. My relationship with my son should be a 9 or 10 out of importance. Okay? How many kids do you have? You know? You got 3 kids and you got a partner and you got a business and everything's a 10. You're not going to win that game. So let's be realistic and kind to ourselves.
And your kids are in different circumstances too.
Yeah.
You know, established, married versus still studying.
Yeah.
You know, you need to have different levels of that. I'll tell you one thing this has done for me. It's I was able to score pretty quickly. I've got a problem with the relationship at the moment, and I've been struggling with it. And this has actually just switched the light. I feel like kicking myself actually.
Okay. All right. The other thing I want you to think about is that we tend to think of our I score is a reflection of our values. This is what we're telling ourselves are important. Now, you know that model where our values determine our behaviours and our behaviours create our outcomes. Are we all comfortable with that idea? Okay, so our outcomes actually tell us what our values are. That's your result score. Your importance score is not your values. That's some idealistic idea that you have about what your life should be like. because your values are really demonstrated by your results score. Because that's where you're sitting right now. It's all about the results score. So think about the importance score as, oh, okay, maybe that's the sort of nice to have, and one day that might happen, but it's not really based on the decisions that you're making and the choices that you're having in your life. For me, that was the biggest takeaway. I got this quote at a conference probably 25, 30 years ago. Your purpose is your result. If you're not sure on what your life purpose is, if you haven't actually defined one, just look at where you are right now. Because that's telling you, just look straight in the mirror. Am I happy with myself? Am I happy with my relationships? Am I happy with my business? Because you've made the decisions that have brought you to where you are today. So that's about responsibility. And that's my other important message around today. I'm an expert on marriage. I've been married twice, been divorced twice. I've got it all covered, you know. I'm just the absolute expert. And when I think back about those marriages, and it's when you're struggling in a relationship, it's really easy to blame that other person. I've been so guilty of that at times. Take responsibility. If you're looking at, here's one of those triggers. If you're looking at your relationship and there's a 2 or 3 point gap between what you say is important and where you are right now, look at how you've created that. That's responsibility. And we can't control how someone will respond to us. That's another story altogether. You know, you got me going, you bastard. Take that responsibility. Think, we're in this situation, how have I contributed to that? I need to do more of this or less of that. I need to give more of this, I need to take more of that. And sometimes it is that taking piece about saying, I am important, my values do count, instead of what I've done so many times is just gone along with them and not stood up for where I am or where I want to be. That's what I mean by responsibility. What about your sense of self? You know, do you have that clear sense of purpose? Is it defined? If it's not, that's your fault. So do the work. Take some time out, make that happen. What else is on there? Vulnerability. Like, that's hard. Okay, there's no easy way into that space. You just got to do it. You got to suck and see and learn from that process. And for me, if I think back, that's the path to self-love. Is just testing that. Self-love and vulnerability are really two sides of the same coin. And it's hard. It really is hard, you know, but you talk about fulfillment, about what you experience when you come out the other side, is just massive. And it just sets you up for everything else that's going on. And I definitely don't want to sound like I'm the guy that knows everything, because I got so many gaps and so many holes in my life, but I'm doing the work, you know. How are we going for time? Got about another 10 minutes. So I'm happy to open it up for conversations and questions and challenges, and let me just share one thing before we do that about vulnerability. Brené Brown, I'm sure you've all heard of her, she talks about the paradox of life. And the paradox is we all carry shame and embarrassment. And we think, if I was to share that thought, if I was to make that comment, if I was to be open with that person, there's no way they could accept me. For sure that they would reject me. Okay? Who doesn't have that sometimes? So the paradox is, that she talks about, is that when you step into that space, when you share at that level, when you go hard about being open, what it actually does is build connection. It builds trust. It's enhancing for the relationship because it makes you more attractive, because not many people are comfortable about doing that. And it's fulfilling for yourself. You cannot lose. Because even if you get rejected, at least you know where you stand. It's tough. Okay. But, you know, when I talked earlier on about fulfillment, that it's on the other side of all the tough stuff, That's exactly what I'm talking about right now.
You say, Mark, that we're pretty quick as humans to point the finger outside of us to validate why we feel the way we do, when it's all an inside job based on inherent meaning that we give things. So we have this reflexive puppeteer, the subconscious programming and conditions that sort of create this response down here where the meaning is that being subconsciously linked up, you know, being vulnerable means I'm going to be exposed and people, you know, they won't like that and they'll push them away. But it's kind of like reassessing the meaning. So actually, vulnerability, what it really means is that it actually creates more connection and people are drawn to me. They see that I'm human. So it's kind of almost like doing an audit of these different meanings that we have reflexively linked up so that we can be more directing how we're showing up and experiencing life rather than these reflexive mechanisms.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's authentic, isn't it? It's just showing what's on the inside, and we all want to be authentic, but do we want to do the work that allows us to be authentic? Yeah, Dino.
So obviously you can see the gaps, we can all see the gaps there, Mark, and I suppose that phrase, do the work, I mean, it's the hard part, like where would you recommend, how do you start the work?
That's such a good question. There are so many opportunities. I think starting to think deeply about some of the things that we've spoken about today and take that assessment away and do it a few times and come back and revisit it a few times as well and just think about where am I sitting with this? And it all starts with that self-love and vulnerability piece. So practice being more open. There's some great books I can recommend. The Four Agreements is a great book to start with, okay? Don Miguel Ruiz. I have it on Audible, and I haven't listened to it for a while, and I must have listened to that book like 15, 20 times. And it's just like 4 agreements with yourself that get you grounded and centered. There are so many groups and organisations. I spent 4 days on a men's retreat the weekend before last. That's where I met Justin. And it was hard work. Some of the stuff we had to do, and we laugh about it. And you know, I could share things that we did, but it would be out of context, and it'd be meaningless. You just think that's weird. But when you're there, it's just you're either in or you're out, and it's so challenging and so rewarding at the end of the day. I'll share one thing. So it started Friday morning, we finished Monday afternoon, 250 men camping hard in the Numinbah Valley, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Where? Numinbah Valley. It's sort of Gold Coast hinterland, about 45 minutes from here. So one of the exercises we did on the Sunday morning, well, not everyone did this, there were different workshops and different things, and I saw the notice for this on the board, and I thought, I wonder what that's a metaphor for, because it didn't make sense. I couldn't work out, I wonder what they're actually going to do. Because what it said on the fly was, you're going to get buried alive. Okay, it's obviously a metaphor. I wonder what they're really going to do. So we go out on the Sunday afternoon at that stage, and we're given a pick and a shovel, and we dig a grave for ourselves. And then you're with a couple of buddies, and you lie down and you think about, what part of yourself do you want to leave behind? What is it in the way that we think? What's the stuff that we carry that is not serving us? And you let that part of you die. That was the symbolism. So we're lying down in the grave, like this. We've got a snorkel so we can breathe, but there's no goggles, there's no eye protection. You just close your eyes, you lie there, while your 2 buddies bury you under about 1 foot of soil. And you're there for about 15 minutes. And gives you a bit to think about, you know, in terms of your rebirth, you starting a new life, and there's funeral music playing. I don't know if this is landing for you or it sounds a bit corny, but I can tell you it just had impact, you know. And then the time is up, and you step up out of the grave and ready to start a new life with all that shit left behind. It's powerful stuff.
You've got it at any time. You were
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Although, mind you, my buddies had too much dirt and clumps of glass and everything. So my time was up. They said, everyone, stand up, and I'm going. I couldn't get up. So in the end, I've thrown my hands out, so like help get some of this stuff off me, and they didn't respond straight away, and I had to go at them later, like laughing, and the advice to me was, if you're going to put your hands up and ask for help, don't do the thumbs up. But your head's in a different space, so I messed that part up. But in the end, I got up, and you just sit with that for a bit. You sit with the impact and the weight of what you've decided to commit to moving forward. So it's that sort of stuff, And there's all sorts of retreats you can do, and I know a few. There's just simple circles you can do. We're doing a mentoring session later, and so there's 3 people doing mentoring sessions. Then I will talk about it in a little bit. And I just wondered with my mentoring session whether we wanted to just have a Q&A about the things I've been talking about this morning, or whether we could just do a little vulnerability facilitation session with the people in my group. But I'm happy to do either. So whoever in my group, you can let me know what you want to do. I'm happy to play it either way. Okay, just as a little taste of the work.